Is it right that Angela Rayner is going to get a severance payment of £17,000 for loss of office?
Well, this will be a matter for Angela, whether she decides to accept it or not. But what we've done and Keir Starmer's done since coming into government is changed and tightened the rules over severance payments. So we don't see in the future what we saw under the Tories, where you had ministers serving for a week and then helping themselves to a severance payments.
Indeed, you're going to change the rules in October. So many people might then say, actually, since you've already said this shouldn't happen, she and indeed some of her other colleagues should say, no, we're not going to take it.
Well, we tightened up the rules to stop what we saw under the Tories. What Angela decides to do will simply be a matter for her to decide.
All right. This weekend, most of your cabinet colleagues are boning up on their new briefs. Congratulations on keeping yours. You don't have to read the volumes. But does this extensive reshuffle suggest that the Prime Minister thinks that the change he promised last year just wasn't being delivered?
Well, I still have plenty to read, I have to say. No, what I think it marks is the end of a first year in which we had to get to grips with the fact that last government crashed the economy, they'd wrecked the NHS, they'd hollowed out the armed forces. So we've spent a really tough first year clearing up the mess, and now we're starting to rebuild, we're starting to renew. And what Keir Starmer has done is put a new team in place and said to us all, you've got to go up a gear. And you've got to go up a gear to demonstrate that government can deliver for people. And what that means is that we've got to start to show that we can help change people's lives, make them better off and make them more secure. That is the challenge for each and every one of us now in this new cabinet.
But there is a contrast. I mean, people will say, John Healey, he's been there a year, done well, he knows the job. But he's wiped out pretty much the whole Home Office team who, it could be argued, are just getting to grips with the job. Surely this must suggest that what he thinks is that the handling of the small boats, for example, just hasn't been done.
So I think what you should see from Keir Starmer's reshuffle as a whole, never mind the Home Office, is a year of starting to sort out the biggest aspects of the mess we had, put in place some of the foundations on which we now can build. On the Home Office, look, on the Home Office, Shabana Mahmood will now build on the fact that Yvette Cooper has deported 35,000 people who've got no right to be here, a national crime agency that has undertaken over 300 raids on smuggling gangs.
I understand the point.
And for the first time, and this is for Yvette Cooper's credit, a returns arrangement with France. So for the first time, we're detaining some of these people coming across in small boats, and we will deport them to France later this month.
If she has done so well in these last 14 months, why move her? Why not let her get on with the job in the way that he's allowed you to get on the job?
Because I think Keir Starmer has decided that as part of going up a gear, demonstrating the next phase of delivery, he wants Shabana Mahmood, who's done so well getting to grips with the prisons crisis, to do that in the Home Office, and he's going to use the skill that Yvette Cooper has shown in striking a returns deal with France, which the Conservatives couldn't do. And I have to say...
It's still not quite a question to my answer. He's left you where you are because you're thought to be successful, and everybody's got confidence in you. You've read into the job. You know the people and all the rest of it. Why move somebody that you're now telling me has done a terrific job?
Look, in many ways, I contest this whole idea that somehow government's not been successful, or that the last week has simply been a government focused on Angela Rayner and the reshuffle. There's another story of this last week, which is that Bridget Phillips has extended free childcare and funded childcare that will save parents £7,000 a year. Yvette Cooper tightened up the rules for refugee families coming to Britain. I was in Norway after we won the biggest ever British warship contract with Norway, £10 billion, that will help secure 4,000 jobs for the next 15 years. And you will see more of that tomorrow when we launch our defence industrial strategy.
Let me just give you one more go on one other area then. The team handling the Employment Rights Bill, which is one of your flagship bills, Angela Rayner, gone for reasons we all know, and also Justin Madders, who was actually handling the bill. He's now been moved. Is it your plan now, as some suspect, we're hearing that from the TUC, some union leaders, I should say, this morning, that it's now your plan to water down the Employment Rights Bill.
No, I think the plan to upgrade what will be the biggest upgrade in workers' rights for a generation, led by Angela Rayner, is one of the marks of how effective she's been as a minister and what a loss she'll be to government. It is part of the Labour commitment to the public. When we were elected last year, it was in our manifesto. We will deliver an upgrade in workers' rights, and we will deliver also part of Angela Rayner's other legacy, which is planning reforms that will help us build the homes we need in this country.
When you say an upgrade, does that mean that we can expect no changes to the bill that has been proposed by Angela Rayner on employment rights, day one rights, hire and fire provisions and so on?
I'm really confident that we'll deliver what we promised in the manifesto, the biggest upgrade in workers' rights for a generation. The bill's been set out and we'll now pursue it through Parliament.
Or are you saying that now there's a new team, there might be some changes in that bill?
No, I'm saying that the new team will take up the work that Angela Rayner and Justin Madders have already done. They will pick up the commitments we made in the manifesto to the British people, and we will rebalance the security that people at work these days simply don't have, but will in the future because of a Labour government.
All right, well, just one very quick one. One job that's not in the Prime Minister's gift is the role of Deputy Leader of the party. That person's got to be elected by the members. Does the appointment of Mr Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister imply that he's the Leader's preferred candidate? Or is that going to be Shabana Mahmood, as we're hearing this morning?
No, it doesn't. They're two separate jobs, two very important jobs. The Deputy Leader of the Labour Party is an important job and an important vote for Labour Party members, but it is separate from the role in government, and it's the Prime Minister that appoints the Deputy Prime Minister. He's done that with David Lammy.
That's interesting, because historically they've been the same person, John Prescott, now Angela Rayner and so on. But you expect them to be different people now?
Well, I know they're separate jobs. I know they're both important jobs. One's elected, one's appointed. And Keir Starmer's the Prime Minister that appoints all government ministers, and he's appointed David Lammy as the Deputy Prime Minister.
All right, let's talk about the new appointments. Probably the most important one, or certainly the one that people talk about most, is Shabana Mahmood. Her first headache is the arrest of 400 people protesting the prescription of Palestine action. Are you prepared for this to go on week after week, with police hauling people off the streets right outside the studio here?
If we want to avoid a two-tier policing and justice system in this country, when people break the law, there have to be consequences. That's what was happening yesterday. And almost everyone, shares the agony when we see the images from Gaza, the anguish when we see the man-made starvation. And for people who want to voice their concern and protest, I applaud them. But that does not require them to link it to support for Palestine Action, a prescribed group. And I wonder how many of those people protesting in Parliament Square yesterday realise that members of this group have attacked police with sledgehammers, have been responsible for criminal damage, and have been planning other acts of similar violence. And it was those steps advised by the security agencies and the police, the Joint Terrorism Analysis Unit, that led to the decision the government to prescribe Palestine action.
Let's be clear. There are different groups of people here, and as you say, police were abused. There were people who came clearly to make trouble and so on. But many of those were not people carrying the placards. The people who were being taken off. I physically saw them. I saw some of them as I left here yesterday, being carried off. And they were, if I can put it this way, elderly peaceniks, a lot of them. And they are going to come back week after week after week. Is the government really just going to let this go on?
So I would say to people like that, look, voice your concerns.
Police officers who should be arresting people for burglaries, who are going to be out on Parliament Square every Saturday doing this.
So I would say to those people, voice your concerns, protest on the streets, challenge us as a government to do what we can to relieve the suffering in Gaza. But that does not need to be linked with support for Palestine Action, which is a prescribed
group. To be
group.
absolutely clear, there's going to be no retreat, no change in government policy on this issue.
I expect Shabana Mahmood to be just as tough as Yvette Cooper, and I expect her to defend the decision the government's taken to prescribe Palestine action because of what some of its members are responsible for and were planning, and I expect her to do that in the courts as well.
All right, let's talk about Shabana Mahmood's toughness. Yvette Cooper promised to smash the gangs, stop the boats. The gangs are unsmashed. The boats are carrying record numbers. More today than I think have been in for some time. Is Shabana Mahmood going to put asylum seekers in containers in disused military facilities like RAF Hickson in Staffordshire and so on, which are essentially in your control?
Well, I think you'll see Shabana pick up and build on some of the progress that Yvette Cooper has made. The small boats, the complete collapse and chaos in the asylum and immigration system, the loss of control the last government had of the British borders, the way that they let the smuggling gangs have 6 years head start on us, all demonstrate how tough this will be. Now, as far as Shabana goes, she will pursue some of what Yvette Cooper has already done. But I think you'll start to see whole of...
when you say you'll start to say, you must know whether she's going to use military facilities or not, because she's got to get your agreement. So are you not going to use military facilities to get these people out of asylum hotels?
So the point I was going to make is that I think you'll start to see Keir Starmer insist that dealing with the small boats, solving the illegal immigration crisis, is part of the job for the whole of government, not just the Home Office. So with the Home Office, I have been putting military planners into their border command and into their planning for the future. And we are looking at the potential use of military and non-military use sites for temporary accommodation for the people who come across on these small boats that may not have a right to be here or need to be processed rapidly before we can decide whether or not they should stay or whether or not we deport them like we have done in record numbers over the last year.
I'm hearing that as a yes, there will be military facilities used. Can we expect to see that before the end of the year?
So those are decisions we haven't taken yet, but it's work we're doing at the moment, and we're doing it jointly with the Home Office.
You would be in favour of it, though, wouldn't you?
I'm looking really hard at it. I'm looking at it with the Home Office. And I recognise that the loss of confidence of the public over recent years in Britain's ability to control its borders needs to be satisfied, and we have to deal with this problem of the small boats.
All right. Is Shabana Mahmood ready to withdraw from or suspend our compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights to ensure that you can do some of the things you want to do?
Well, I can't speak for Shabana Mahmood, but I can reflect what the Prime Minister has already said, which is that we are looking at how we can tighten the interpretation and the application of the European Convention on Human Rights, particularly in areas like the right to family life and family joining. What he has said is that we will not pull out entirely of the Convention, and the reason for that is that it underpins important agreements that keep us safe or keep us our economy going. So the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, for instance, is underpinned by the...
But you know which bit is important? Article 8, which is the right to family life, which I know that the new Home Secretary has already said aloud that she thinks has been interpreted too strictly and that people are basically gaming the system and using it. So is the government ready to review the interpretation and use of that article, and have you got the stomach to change the way it's operated in this country?
So Keir Starmer's already said that we're reviewing the interpretation of the Convention, but what he has said also is we won't pull out because it underpins so many important wider agreements. And if we pulled out, that would mean we were the only nation in NATO not to be signed up to the Convention, and it would put us in the club with Russia and Belarus.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what the answer there is. Is the option on the table, or is it not, to vary the use of Article 8, the right to family life, so that people don't claim that, for example, they've got a relative, have got a child and so on, and that stops them being deported?
as I've said, and I've reflected what the Prime Minister has said, we are already...
I'm not clear what the Prime Minister means.
Well, we're looking at exactly what you're suggesting, the interpretation and the application of aspects of the Convention. What I am also saying, which others are urging, is that he's made clear we're not going to pull out, and I've given you the reasons why.
Right.
It underpins really important agreements that keep us safe and keep our economy flowing, and it would mean we're the only nation in NATO not to be signed up to the Convention, and we'd be putting ourselves alongside Russia and Belarus in a club we do not want to be part of.
You are a year in. You've been a minister before, under Tony Blair, so you had an idea of what you're getting yourself into. Do you think that some of your colleagues have found that being in office is much more difficult than they anticipated?
Everybody who comes into government finds it's harder than they anticipated. I remember Tony Blair and Gordon Brown finding this in 1997. You know, of course, that's the nature of government.
After 14 months, everybody's got moved.
Look, no complaints. I'm actually proud to have been part of a Labour government in this first year that's delivered 4 million extra appointments in the NHS, 500,000 more...
we haven't got time to go through...
More free school meals. As a Defence Minister, let me also say, the biggest pay rise for armed forces in over 20 years and the biggest increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
John,
this is the way that we make Britain safe, and this way that I make defence also an engine for growth so that we deliver for the British people on jobs.
If I may put this to you this way, you've had this big reshuffle because Angela Rayner's downfall came, as some people would say, because when it came to it, she, by her own admission, she says this in her letter, couldn't live up to the standard that she had so vociferously demanded of others when they were in office. Did some of your colleagues just believe that you do better than the Tories because in some way you were just morally superior? No. None of us felt that. All of us felt that we wanted to set higher standards, the sort of standards the public have a right to expect of their government. Angela Rayner has recognised, as the independent ethics advisor said, that she broke the ministerial code. She's taken the decision to resign as a result, and she's right to do so. Now, that's accelerated a reshuffle that the Prime Minister was already planning. And in many ways, look, the challenge of government isn't what happens, it's how you deal with it. And I think we've seen clear, decisive, swift action from the Prime Minister this week. John Healey, thank you so much for your time this morning.